What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at the Kingsland. In case you were wondering what this venue looks like, for all the times we interviewed here, we're actually on the stage today. And today we are here with Seven Spires. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, huge shout out to our mutual friend Sonia from Mother Harlot for telling me about you guys.
She's the
so
best.
rad.
The best.
Yep, huge shout out. You guys gotta play a show together.
For sure.
Yeah. Yep, but you guys currently just finished your second album. The first question I want to ask, is this like a direct follow-up to Solve, or do you think that this record kind of like stands out in its own?
We can't give away too much yet, just because we haven't announced with the label and everything, but it's in a similar world, I would say.
Yeah.
And do you want to take this
Sure.
further
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
don't give anything away?
With Solve, we touched on a lot of different like subgenres and themes about like death and kind of like the darkness and the light, both like thematically and also sonically. And it's further into like both of those things, I guess. So there was a little bit of like a black metal edge to some of the songs on Solve, and we kind of went further with that in some places, and also some anthemic kind of melodic things. So yeah, it's a sort of a follow-up, I guess.
Awesome. I've noticed that Solve was very diverse and had a lot of different sounds. And was that like, with the making of that record, was that like a preconceived idea, let's make many different sounds for the record, or did it just kind of happen that way?
A little of both. Partially because the arrangements are so dense with the orchestra, and also Adrian's voice is pretty iconic. Maybe not iconic, but like
Thank you
but,
so much.
very distinct. So I feel like we can get away with a lot of subgenres and a lot of infusing different things, and it still sounds cohesive. And we also like to use the different subgenres to further the story in certain places. So. Certain things require a little bit of a black metal tint and a little bit of a folk metal tint, and
Yeah. Like typically, like each genre will have its own kind of like power metal often is like triumphant feeling. So anytime there's like a triumph, let's underline that with like a Camelot ripoff, and not you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, and so the thing with that is it's all natural too. We all have very diverse musical influences, so typically we'll hear it before we know what it is, and then it falls into what it is later defined as. So it's more the ears taking the lead, and then the rest of it follows after that.
I think we all just said exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
but in a completely different way.
Yeah, you guys cover every aspect on the periodic table of heavy metal subgenres.
That's right.
great way of putting it.
Thank you.
Yeah. B is black, D is death, HC is hardcore, MC is metalcore.
There you go.
So
Man, you know your elements.
yeah, exactly. I failed
Science.
chemistry, but I took something from
Go.
it. Now, being that you have many different elements in your music, depending if you're playing a more black metal song or a more folky song, is it like a different vibe when playing these songs live?
Yes, definitely.
Also, no, not at all.
Well, so the thing is, it's no, not at all, because we're Seven Spires. That's it's the music that we feel. If everything feels exactly as it should to us, but if we're really angry on stage, some of our heavier, darker songs
Oh, that's true.
feel pretty good that day, And if we have a crowd where everybody's smiling and cheering and singing along with all the power metal lyrics, the power metal songs sound really good, So there's feelings that come through in each of them and everything, but at the same time, it's all just part of what we are. So nothing really changes. It's just there,
And also, like, as instrumentalists, we all kind of have pretty strong personalities, I would say. So
Yeah, for sure.
playing with Chris and Peter, and it's very much like I'm playing with them, and not we're playing a song or a different song. It's like I'm jamming with the guys.
Yeah.
So that's what it feels like to me, at least.
Now, depending on the different styles, does that come also from maybe like feeling like a different emotion in the studio that day? Like, I'm feeling pissed off in the studio today, so let's make one of our angrier songs today. Does it kind of work that way?
I think it's inverse, actually. I think we channel the emotions. We, like anybody else in the world, we all have a lot of stuff built up, and we call it out when we need to execute certain things, and especially musically. It's the other way around, really. So it's not the feelings that, it is, the feelings have a great influence on what we do, but we also, as musicians and writers and just creative people in general, have recallability with those feelings, and that's what makes the music.
Yeah, and I know that like there's some bands that are strictly a black metal band, some bands that are strictly death metal. But by you guys having the ability to not really pigeonhole yourself, do you think that your music can also appeal to multiple audiences as well and like play with different types of bands?
Yeah, we've opened for Sonata Arctica and Flesh God Apocalypse with the same album, and both shows were equally very good for us. So, yeah, I think it helps us.
Do you like adjust the set list? Like, do you
Yeah,
play like
oh,
your
for sure.
heavier songs like with the heavier bands?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that was pretty heavy right there.
Yeah.
But one question I have for you, Adrian, is that I know that you also play with Winds of Plague, and I know that you are actually going on tour with Avantasia
Yes.
soon. So, like, is it like a different mind frame playing with those artists as opposed to with Seven Spires, and just maybe working with them allow you to also bring in some newer elements of Seven Spires as well?
Yes to both, because it's not that I'm a hired gun, but I don't have as much creative input with Winds, and of course I'm a backing vocalist in Avantasia, but when I come here, the whole band is just kind of like, here it is. It's a lot more personal, and also I'm less of a background member here, I guess, because I'm literally the front person.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
There was another part of the question that I'm forgetting.
Does playing with the other
Oh,
bands
yes,
allow
yeah.
you
Thank
to
you.
bring in some newer elements?
Being a more full-time keyboardist definitely influenced my writing, like my orchestration. I used to only, because I went to school for orchestration, like writing for a symphony or whatever, and I would only kind of think in violin style of writing or something like that, or piano style writing, but after playing with Winds for a couple years, I started to think more like a keyboard player instead of a classically trained pianist, and that brought out totally different melodies, which is cool, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely awesome. Now, us also as a vocalist, do you like need to hear music to come up with lyrics, or does like, because I know you just mentioned like there was a lot of lyrical inspiration, does maybe like the lyrics determine like the music itself?
Yeah, usually the best, in my opinion, this used to be true. The best songs would be lyrics and chords first, but actually it can kind of go either way at this point, because we've been writing together so long now. So yeah.
Now, it was funny because I was talking to you earlier that like you guys actually go to music school. I know you're trained as like an upright bassist. You mentioned that you were trained as like an orchestra, and it's funny. I interviewed Tardia, and she said that like her having like a classical background in school for voice made it like a little bit difficult to be in a metal world because she's trained as a classical artist. It's very different. Does coming from a classical background influence you in your style at all, or did you kind of have to like throw away your classical background in order to form a metal band?
So I'm actually trained in classical, jazz, and a lot of different, basically everything that's contemporary, because I went to a music school for 2 years in England where I have a diploma in vocal performance, so you have to learn basically how to be a session singer and do a lot of different styles, reasonably okay enough to get paid. And then we went to Berkeley afterwards, and that was where I learned all of the orchestration. So in some ways, yes, you do kind of have to throw out a lot of unnecessary shit, but I think it's also something that can make you unique as a musician, to have maybe something that not everybody else in the metal world has, like, oh, I can pull a little bit from my jazz training and write a cool cool chord changes for you.
So when it comes to having a lot of diverse training, I think the point of having that training is to throw it out of your immediate mental focus.
Yes.
So that, when you go through that training in school as a musician, and, I also have a lot of jazz training, and so when you throw all of that stuff away, it boils down to who you are musically, and those things are still there. It's not like you completely shut it off. It's just who it makes you comes out when you let it go. When you are not trying to write or play like a jazz musician, for example.
Yeah, it like becomes vocabulary.
Yeah, and your ears grow in the sense that you can hear a wider range of things that maybe you might not if you were very familiar with only one thing. So it really has a positive influence on us, and it's not something that we try to assert control over, but we understand that there's some things that are maybe too much of one thing, and it's being able to have all these influences yet be ourselves and let it all go is where the music comes from in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. I was having this discussion with Taria, and I just interviewed Sharon Denendel from Within Temptation.
Nice.
So those two have very similar vocal styles. One of them has, went to school, vocal training, all that, and then Sharon Denendel doesn't have any vocal training at all.
I didn't know that.
And so there's like that term. I went to art school, so I don't know if you guys had that same vocabulary, but insider artists versus outsider artists. Did you ever?
No, but that instantly makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Really? Wow, I'm impressed. Every time I mentioned that before, they're like, "What?"
It's the music school thing,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I was talking to you because we got to do a bit of a gear rundown. I know that you use a 6-string bass, and which is I may have seen somebody who's seen like thousands of bands. I think you're only the second band I've seen that uses a 6-string bass.
Oh wow.
So does also having a classical background influence the gear that y'all use as well?
Sort of. Maybe not having a classical background. We did get some upright bass on the new album, which I'm really excited about. It was really fun to engineer all that. But I'm, at least as a guitar player, I'm pretty old school. Like I grew up with like 80s metal, so I like old Marshalls and Mesa Boogies and stuff. And even though I use newer technology, I still kind of think in that mindset of like old analog tube amp stuff. But when we do the gear later, I'll kind of go with that. But it would be really hard to bring like a classical guitar style into a metal world, just straight up.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
way.
I mean, like if I were to
Oh,
play
okay.
if I were to play classical
Okay,
guitar
okay.
on stage, like as
Yeah,
the main thing,
yeah.
it would be kind of like, all right, guy, what are you doing?
Well, isn't that what
That
Ingve
would be
does?
weird,
He does for like a song.
He's got text for
Yeah,
that.
but he's also got Strats and Marshalls. So
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you could totally do that for a song.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so the thing with the 6-string bass as well is, the first 1 or 2 years of playing with Spires, I used a 5-string bass, and throughout the process of my musical growth and everything, I started to do a lot of bass tapping and I just grew musically to the point where there was a lot of stuff that I was hearing that I couldn't do, and I think that's the case with many 6-string players or people who play extended range instruments in general. And it's not like I play it because it's hard, but I play it because it's just the right instrument for the context. I think when I think of Seven Spires, I think of completely full musical expression from everybody. Everybody is doing exactly what we do musically 100%. And for Jack that's one thing, for Adrian that's one thing, for Chris that's one thing, and for me it's a 6-string bass and a very aggressive bass tone.
That high C definitely comes into play.
It's a lot
It's
of fun.
gorgeous.
It's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. And there's 2 more questions I have. Kind of going back to like the meaning behind Seven Spires and stuff. Are you trying to convey a certain message to your listeners, like have them see things from a point of view of you guys, or do you like to leave it open to interpretation as well?
I really like to leave it open to interpretation. One of the most important things about metal for me when I was like early listening, early learning instruments was that it was such an emotional like haven for me, and it made me feel less alone. It made me feel powerful, and I felt like other people felt like I did, and I want maybe other people to feel like that too. So yeah, there's no real like I want you to feel the way I feel because I have an agenda. I just want people to not feel alone.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, here's my experience, here's how I feel, this is it, maybe you can relate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and often everybody suffers.
Yeah.
So often there will be somebody at the end of the show who's like, did you write Serenity about X, Y, or Z? And they'll be like, actually, yeah. And they'll be like, I listened to that for 2 weeks straight and nothing else because some horrible thing happened, and that was the thing that made me feel okay. Like, this happened on the first tour.
Oh, wow.
somewhere, and I was like, wow, I have never met you. This is amazing.
Does a fan's interpretation of it give you guys a different perception on the music after they tell you that than when you first wrote it?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think. I mean, a lot of people. So first of all, the reason why we're here and the reason why our fans are here is because it's a haven for all of us, and just the music in general. But every now and then, someone will receive something from the music that surprises us in a really good way, and of course lends a certain perspective. But we know that that's what's going to happen anyway. So it doesn't necessarily change the way we see things, but it's always an experience that we are left thinking about for a while when someone brings that up.
Yeah.
You know, it's always really cool to hear what people have to say.
Yeah. Just the creative process of, you know, bringing something together, starting from nothing, and it comes from you guys, it comes from your blood, it comes from your hands, and then you make it an experience that you share with somebody. And then just because you finish the song, that doesn't mean that your outlook on that is going to change from there.
Right, for sure, yeah.
Yep. And the final question I want to ask you is, because I was a little disturbed by your lack of the Boston metal scene, where you guys are from, right?
Oh yeah, what do you mean?
You were like, oh, All That Remains is from Boston?
Yeah.
Or-
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we know many bands that are from Boston.
I was
and
kidding.
Of course, the Boston metal scene is really, really solid. But you know, I think with any metal scene, and especially in the States, it's difficult because everything's so far spread out.
Okay.
We
that-
also kind of live under a rock.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, your schedule's ridiculous.
Well, all of our schedules.
Yeah.
are ridiculous.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
But like, was there a scene that Seven Spires got their name in Boston?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And you know, since I mean, we didn't like grow up with Shadows Fall and All That Remains, and who were the other Unearthed?
Kill Switch.
Yeah.
Kill Switch.
Bury Your Dead.
Like, you know, they were already very established when we were getting our start. So, but you know, a lot of the local guys that we still play with sometimes are still, you know, there and kicking ass, and it's a really, really solid scene. Even we were just playing there. Was it
Few nights
Friday?
Friday,
Thursday,
yeah.
Friday, and the bar was packed out. You know, it's alive and well,
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, didn't you get one? You said you went to school with Dave Davidson, right?
Well, we didn't go to school with him, but he went to the same school as us, and he comes back. Some of the teachers that taught him when he was there still teach and everything, so they bring him in for clinics and lessons. And you know, there's the thing about music schools in general is that, you know, a lot of the people that went there come back because we're all musicians at the end of the day. So that you get to interact with people on different levels all the time, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I think like by like studying like theory, it doesn't matter if you're playing smooth jazz or you're playing grindcore. I think in the end it does kind of go to the same core.
It's
Yeah.
another one of those things where you have to
Definitely.
throw it all out the window to
Yeah.
really use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people think like, oh, if I learn theory, I'm not going to have any soul, or it's just going to box me in, and it's actually quite the opposite. I think
Yeah.
it just gives you a little quicker access to a tool if you need it, or a chord if you need it, and I feel like it kind of narrows the gap between like your worst writing and your best writing. It just kind of
Yeah, it like
raises the ceiling a little bit, or raises the floor rather.
yeah,
Yeah.
it allows you to say more
Mhm.
effectively.
Yeah. And being able to just simply converse with other musicians about music.
Yeah,
Totally.
that's great as well. We
Yeah.
never have to be
That
like
super helps.
there's no like language barrier for us when we're writing with anything. It's like, hey Chris, you know that one thing that you do like this, and he's just like this, yeah, and it's perfect. You know, there's no having to get anything out and write it out because we all know the language
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we're also not like in bar 127 on the third beat. Can you do like?
It's not like the movie Whiplash.
Yeah,
Only when we need to be.
Yeah.
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 I remember when that movie came out, for like, I could not go to a show for like 2 months without the drum tech testing and somebody screaming, "Not my fucking tech!"
that's great. It's the new Freebird.
Yeah, which is a breath of fresh air to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time, for coming on today. Just
you.
is if you're allowed to say it, obviously, when could we be expecting the new Seven Spires, and if there's anything else you would like to promote?
Well, you'll have to find out on your own. But
This year.
we.
Can we say this here?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
say toward the end of this year.
Towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and otherwise, just keep your eyes peeled on all of our social media for upcoming tours, shows, one-offs, anything. We're all in other projects as well, so we're always doing something.
That's true.
That's right.
Keep them busy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But thank you guys so much, everybody. Seven Spires, pick up Solvay if you haven't already, and be on the lookout for new music soon. This is Alex from New York. We'll see you next time.